formed.
We'd like to call to order the June 11th meeting of Clive City Council. Would the clerk please call roll?
Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Council members Weaver.
Here.
Judkins.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Hawker.
Here.
Gasparotto.
Here.
Very good. Would you all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have approval of the agenda. I am not aware of any changes.
For approval. Second.
Motion is second to approve the agenda. Further discussion, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Next up, we have citizen presentation. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda. If you do have an item, please approach the podium and identify yourself. In the meantime, Pete will check and see if there's anyone online who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Your Honor. For those online, if you'd like to get our attention in the council chamber, you can use the raise hand function on your Zoom screen. At the bottom of that screen, you'll see a number of icons, and one of them is React. If you click on that, you'll see a button to raise your hand. Your Honor, I do not see hands going up.
Very good. Thank you, Pete. Just a reminder that in all of our endeavors tonight, we follow the pillars of character counts and expect everyone to follow those principles. Next up, we have consent.
For approval. Second.
Motion second on consent. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote?
I need to vote verbally until I can get signed in, and I'm aye.
And your vote is? He was an aye.
Yes.
And that passes by a vote of 5-0. Next up, we have the chief to talk about ordinance number 1178. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your patience with me on this. I know it's been a process we've been looking at for a while, but someday I hope that we can get through it. So we're back for our first reading. If you had a chance to look at the red line version I sent out, which I think you all did, you'll see that it looks kind of messy. It looks kind of like a crime scene. A lot of red on there. A lot of it was just moving things around and changing some verbiage. So not huge changes, but I'm happy to go through all of those with you. Were you going to bring the red line up, Matt?
Yeah, you can switch over to me. I've got it open.
Go ahead and switch to Matt's wallpaper.
So just to start and I know there were some comments that we received from the Des Moines Bike Collective. I'll address those as we get to them, if that's all right. Otherwise, we can hold them till the end. But if we look under the definition section, you'll see there are some changes. Really just verbiage under where bicycle is listed. We added the e-moto and electric motorcycle definition in there. That's a definition that we created. It is not from the state code. Electric scooter has always been in there. We made a couple little word changes, but it just got moved down into the correct alphabetical order. And then under low speed bicycle, again, just a minor definition change and a change of the state code that we referenced for that definition. Motorcycle, I did add in e-moto and electric motorcycle under that definition, and I'll get to that here in another minute as well. Under pedestrian conveyances, what we did was under 15 in the red line version, under personal transportation device, we took some of those devices out of that section, moved them up under pedestrian conveyance. But in personal transportation devices, so one of the questions we got from the Des Moines Bike Collective was, are bicycles and electric bicycles, is low speed electric bikes going to be considered under this definition? They were accidentally taken out of the Scribner's error on my part. So when I transferred everything over to the clean version, those two items came out. So I'm going to put those back in. So they will be back in there and included under that definition of personal transportation device. So I think we got that one question cleared up that the collective had. As we move on through the rest of the definitions, again, it's a lot of just cleanup and moving things around into the correct order. I did have the wrong definition of street, oddly enough, so I had to change that. But that that section, I know it looks like a whole lot of changes, but a lot of it's just a few words here and there, and then just some alphabetization, if that's a word. Under section 674, again, just a title change. We took out the word signals and added traffic control devices just to include more of those devices that are out there that control stop signs, stoplights, yield signs, those types of things. Some other numbering changes you can see as we took out that improper writing section. The number sequence changed. Everything that was covered under improper writing has been moved over to traffic code. Sorry, has been moved over to responsible writing 679. So that section, while that was struck, the terms that were under that section are still in the ordinance. It's just under a different section. We did add just some other language in there that included all the different types of devices that could be used under responsible riding. And I'm sorry, Matt, if we can go back to that traffic code applies right there.
This one? Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So one of the other issues that we had with the collective, or not an issue, but a question that they had, was how are we defining e-motos and what really falls under that definition? If I understand Alex correctly, she's here. She wanted the e-motos, the motorized bicycles, all of those under that one definition. We split those intentionally because we are going to be looking at e-motos and the motorized bicycles as separate motor vehicles. We're looking at them as they fall under the 321 code. So a motorized bicycle is otherwise known as a moped. Those require licensing for 14 and 15-year-olds. 16, they have to have that moped license. 16 and above have to have a regular driver's license. The e-motos are going to be the larger electric devices, the e-motos and electric motorcycles that would normally require a motorcycle endorsement. So not only a valid driver's license, but that motorcycle endorsement. So it's defined pretty clearly in there, I think. I know that Alex might have a difference of opinion on that, but happy to hear what she has to say. I don't know if that clarifies things for her or not, but happy to get what her opinion is on that. Like I said, I think it's fairly clear through the ordinance, through those definitions and what the types of vehicles are. And again, considering that we're going to be looking at them as motor vehicles that will fall under that 321 traffic code, I think the way we have it listed is appropriate.
Hey, Chief, can I ask some questions on that?
Yes.
Because I was really happy to see that added in. That was something that I was wondering about. So when we say license and registration, does that mean that these will now have to have license plates so they can
Yes.
be identified?
Yes.
Okay. So
And
that,
I don't know how that's going to work, quite honestly. That's
Isn't
the
that a
DOT is
state
going to
level
have to
thing?
figure that out.
yeah.
Because these aren't, I don't own one of these devices. I don't know if they typically come with a VIN number, a 17-digit VIN. If they don't, I could see that being problematic and trying to register something and get insurance for it. But that's an issue the DOT is going to have to fix. With a Senate file change that the governor signed just not too long ago, it gives us that ability to look at these now as these either mopeds or as a regular motorcycle. And that's what puts it into the category of needing the particular license, the registration, the insurance.
Yeah, I think that's the right move. I'm really happy about that. So you're saying 14 and 15-year-olds have to be, so are we saying that a 12 or 13-year-old cannot operate these legally then? Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so that's good.
On private property, they could.
Right.
They
but
can
on
do hot
public-
laps in their backyard. If they have farm ground, they could go
That's right,
out to the
yeah.
farm ground, but
But we're talking about public spaces. Yeah.
yes.
Okay, and then, so does this allow you and your officers to pull someone over without any other reasons, just to check on their licensing? Is that allowed or?
Generally speaking, I would say we still have to have probable cause to make a traffic stop.
Okay,
If it's clearly an 8-year-old that's out riding around on an e-moto, we're going to make that call and we're going to make that stop. That's not, an 8-year-old's not going to get a ticket. They're not going to go to jail. We're going to contact parents at that point. But so
Right.
it's, again, back to the education over the enforcement side of things. But I will tell you, the example that I always use is the individual that was hitting the street on 86th a couple of weeks ago on a 6,000-watt scooter should have had a motorcycle license. And that
Sure.
32-year-old individual was actually barred. So a pretty significant charge that they are looking at.
Right. And
Um,
in our definition, we define e-motos as having a 750 watt or greater.
or greater.
Are
it's-
we, so are we certain that all those e-motos have that level or more?
That's something that once we see the violation and make the stop, then we're going to have to investigate to see what type of vehicle it is and then determine what type of registration or license they're going to need.
Okay.
So it's going to be a process. It's, there's not going to be something
Right.
that's
No, I
going to
get
just
that.
tell us just by looking at it.
Right.
We're going to have to
So
go through the
if
process.
we pull someone over and they're not licensed or registered, what's the penalty? Is it still just the $25 fee?
Well, that would revert back to the 321 code,
Oh, okay.
which is traffic law, and
Okay.
a regular traffic citation would
Oh,
be
good.
written at
Okay.
that point.
Okay, that's better. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can go on to the next page, I think, Matt.
Okay.
Again, responsible riding, that not a whole lot of changes, but the addition from the improper riding section was put in there. We had a request from Alex, help me out, was it Mindy that was with us on that Zoom call? She had a request for some ADA compliancy language to be added in as far as pedestrian paths and trails, things like that. So we added that in under number 5 of that responsible riding section. If we go to the next page, just for some consistency between us and Waukee, we did add that section 8 in about hand signals. It's a may make hand signals. It's not a shall, but we wanted that consistency in there. We also added in 9 and 10, which just has some age requirements on operation of these devices. A class 3 low-speed electric bike, for example, requires a 16-year-old or older person to operate that.
Chief, on those hand signals, will that be part of your education process then, making sure that students and young riders understand the importance of that and what
Sure.
they're involved?
Yes, absolutely. Probably the biggest addition is this last section, or it's close to one of the last sections, motor vehicle operations. This is duties and responsibilities of motorists that are out driving around in the street, and things that they have to do for the protection of cyclists. So by giving bicycles the right of way in the bicycle lane, lateral passing distance, meaning you have to stay 3 feet or greater away from a bicyclist as you pass them, things of that nature. It's just geared towards the safety of the bike rider. After that, there were no other changes. Everything is what you have already seen. I did keep the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in here. When we first started this process, trail safety and trail etiquette was a big part of what we wanted to achieve. That speed limit is, I think you're going to see consistent from city to city. It's going to be on the ordinance in Waukee. Again, we wanted consistency with them being one of the first ones to do this. So that's why I left it in there. Of the complaints that we get regarding these types of devices, I think speed is the greatest one that we have. And it doesn't matter if it's the trailer on a sidewalk or a multi-use path. That's the complaint that we get. That's the greatest complaint is they're not telling us they're coming and they're going too fast. So something we really wanted to address. I guess with that, that's really the end of the updates that I made for this last iteration. If you had additional questions, I'd be happy to answer those. I think Alex is here and wants to speak as well, so I'm happy to hear what she has to say as well.
Any questions
Yes,
for
ma'am.
Chief right now? Susan?
I do. In regard to the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit, given that we know in some areas where there's a downhill slope, there is a significant likelihood it's going to exceed 20 miles per hour, and we're okay with that, I think. Would we plan to post a higher speed limit in that situation? It looks like that's a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know that we want to do that. Again, when we look at trail safety, it's all the users of the trail, not just cyclists. It's people that are out walking dogs and pushing strollers, and there's elderly that use the trail. So I think as a city, we have a responsibility to all of them to make it safe for everybody. I know that the part of the trail that Alex was referring to, that most of that is actually in Urbandale, so it's not part of the trail that we could control the speed on anyway. They would have to do that.
But if we had an area like that where it is, I've gone over 20 miles per hour, and I'm not that fast of a bicyclist, so I do know that it's possible to do that.
Yeah,
And
it's
have it be
possible.
safe.
I've probably done it too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you
So
that I
I'm
haven't done it,
just
but-
saying, would we be open to looking when we know there's a place, given that
if-
we're going to want to enforce it, that we may need to
Yeah,
put it
it's
at a
going to
little
be hard.
higher?
It's going to be hard to enforce it anyway. If the council directs me to do that and look at that and we want to do that and go that direction, I'm more than happy to do it. Again, the 20-mile-an-hour, it's not just some number we picked out of the air. I think that's the consistent number we're going to see from city to city. So we wanted to start that consistency, but I'm willing to look at anything. So
Yeah, I guess I hear what you're saying, Susan. Obviously, as I've said many times, I ride all the time. Um, first of all, I think we need consistency across the metro, number one. Number two, we have this thing on bikes called brakes. And there's no reason why you can't slow down. I've been on that hill many times. And have I gone over 20? Of course I have. But doesn't mean that it's safe and doesn't mean you can't slow down. So I guess I would just strongly disagree with that concept that we're going to have inconsistency even within our own community. I think that just creates confusion and is unnecessary. So,
But we do have the option to post a speed limit lower or higher, the way this is written. So we can evaluate as we go
certainly
along.
the way it's written. Yeah, we have the ability to adjust that as we want to.
And again, I think the other point here is that we have to have an enforcement mechanism, and that's what this is an enforcement mechanism for our officers. We're not going to be posting officers out on the Greenbelt Trail with radar guns, looking for people to go over this speed. That's not what this is for. So I think it's an unnecessary complication, personally.
But I did hear our legal counsel tell us that we shouldn't go into anything with the expectation that we won't enforce it. And therefore, I just would like clarification that if we know there's an area that's unlike the majority of our Greenbelt Trail where it is unsafe to go over 20, but there are areas where perhaps it is okay, that we're open to looking at how that area is being used and could it be used safely?
I would
with
argue
higher speed limit?
a hill is a prime place to be on the lookout for other people, and increased speed and an incline is a time we don't want to go over.
Yeah, and I would add that I think from a consistency point of view, to go along with Waukee, if we start cherry picking parts of the trail that can go faster, slower, I think it makes it far more difficult for our officers. I understand what you're saying, and it could be difficult, but I just think you're making things. If we start cherry picking these and we start allocating different speeds to parts of the trails, we start making this a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
But at the same time, yes, the way it's written, yes, that potentially could happen. So
Does it ever happen that we would, in any context, post a speed higher than the speed limit? I've never seen this, but I'm relatively new to the concept.
on a trail or a sidewalk,
Anywhere. Trail, road,
well, I don't think we have that ability to post a speed higher than what's already established
Okay.
by code.
You may
On a-
have
on a trail
situations
and
where
on
you
a-
go under
under.
because of
Right.
a hill or something
Right.
like that. And so, and as the chief mentioned, has the language that's worded under letter C, you could have a posted speed limit that's different than 20 miles an hour. You can go above or below it. Because there could be a section you want to even go further below than 20.
Right.
In certain parts of our trail system. Again, that would be at the discretion. I think what the chief is getting at in terms of what our standard practice is going to be is 20. Right? Is that fair to say,
Yes.
chief? But this language gives the city the flexibility for a special circumstance to have a variation if we so choose.
So
Yes.
moving forward, if that was an issue where you're talking about, Susan, or an issue with the trail winds, we could always have that flexibility. If the problem came up, to pivot the policy and be able to post something different that addresses.
And we
that.
don't need to pivot. It's already here that we're giving ourselves that flexibility
Yes.
if posted. If it's not posted,
It's 20.
limit is 20.
Yes. And I would say, and one thing that we have never done is prevent bicycles or low-speed electric bikes from being on sidewalks or streets. So they always have the option, if somebody wants to go faster, if they want to ride down Hickman Road, probably not the safest thing, but more power to them. And if they can push it up to 50, they're doing a lot better than I am. So,
And as Eric was saying, I think as we talked about, this is the first bite of the apple, right? This is our first iteration of this, and then we're going to assess it, because I know personally for me, I would like to see greater and penalties, more of a tiered system where if you're a repeat offender, you get penalized more heavily. But again, I understand that this is just a first cut. We'll reassess it, and then we can come back in a year, and if we need to make modifications, we can do that. So.
yeah. And we started with a low fine intentionally because we knew there was going to be a year education component with this. But I think with that Senate file, what that did was allow us to get the traffic code involved. Ultimately, I think that's what we are going to see as a department and with enforcement is more regular traffic citations that are issued. So to your point, a little bit more teeth in the penalty.
Right. Yeah.
Well, other questions or comments for the chief? Alex, did you have anything?
Good evening.
Could you identify yourself for us?
Yes, I'm Alex Rice. I'm the executive director of the Street Collective, and we are a nonprofit that serves the Des Moines Metro, working to make this an amazing place to walk and bike. So as you all know, I think at least those up here know, maybe not everyone back here, but that's why this is of such interest to us, because we want to make sure that the Des Moines Metro is still an amazing place to walk and bike. So I had a chance to sit down with the chief a few weeks ago and with Pete, and we walked through the ordinance, went through a lot of issues, and I think we see a lot of those edits reflected here. Really appreciated adding some safety provisions for cyclists, like provision against opening your door into the path of a cyclist. So I really appreciate that being taken to heart, that feedback that we'd shared. I know the chief mentioned that the issue with the definition around personal transportation devices, he's going to clean that up. So for me, the two issues where I would still like to see movement, I don't think this will surprise anyone up here. One of those is the e-moto use in this ordinance. And I understand kind of the chief's perspective where he's saying a motorized bicycle is different from an electric motorcycle. And I'd be fine with just then not using the term e-moto in the ordinance and just saying electric motorcycle instead of e-moto. I think that accomplishes all of the chief's goals and making sure that we're not muddying those two categories, because there are different rules that apply to those categories. The challenge when you define in the ordinance an e-moto as only being a motorcycle and not a motorized bicycle, because generally, broadly, an e-moto is considered to be both motorized bicycles and motorcycles. Now we're starting to create confusion. So this is West Des Moines education campaign that they do. They make it really simple for parents to understand. When you are looking at this thing, you're thinking about buying your kid, it's not all e-bikes. Some of them are e-bikes and some of them are e-motos. And if it goes more than 28 miles per hour, it's not an e-bike anymore, it's an e-moto. And so this is a really easy way for parents to understand. It also explains some of the differences in terms of if it's an e-moto, you can't ride on the trails. If it's an e-bike, you can. So this is the kind of easy, simple education campaign we want to have across the metro. And so when we start to add now a third category into that conversation for education purposes, now parents are going to start to get a little more confused, lose the meaning a little more. Now parents have to know, well, there's the e-bike, there's the motorized bicycle, and there's the e-moto. And now I'm trying to navigate and figure out which of the three categories I'm in. So it just creates a lot of confusion. And even the sort of national standards, there's an organization called People for Bikes that does a lot of work around trying to really codify these definitions, create a common understanding. I shared with the chief a diagram that they have on their website that shows e-bikes go up to 28 miles per hour, and then e-motos are more in that 30 to 65 plus mile per hour max speed range. So they're grouping both motorized bicycles and electric motorcycles under that e-moto category. So my fear in doing something different in the ordinance is now we're going to create confusion because we're not consistent across the metro, and it makes messaging more challenging. So that's where I'd like to see that changed. And it could be one of two ways. It could just be honestly remove the term e-moto from the ordinance and just use that in messaging to parents as an easier term for them to wrap their heads around. Or it could be creating a separate definition in the ordinance that notes that an e-moto may refer to a motorized bicycle or an electric motorcycle, but then within the ordinance where you really mean to say electric motorcycle, say that rather than saying e-moto. So that's one of the issues that I'd still like to see addressed in the ordinance, because I think passing it this way with e-motos in there as it is, it's going to create more confusion, and it's going to keep us from our goal, which is educating parents about making safe choices here. And then the other, as I think has already been touched upon, is the trail speed limit. I think an important thing to note is that what this ordinance accomplishes and what's between the ordinance and between state code, it's going to keep devices that can go over 20 miles per hour on motor power alone off of the trails. So a lot of those issues with excessive speed on trails are already going to be addressed by virtue of the other provisions that are in the ordinance. So that's where that piece feels unnecessary. And then as someone who does a lot of biking, and I know there are people up here who do a lot of biking, many of you have already acknowledged that you go over 20 miles per hour on the section of hill of the Raccoon River Valley Trail that goes through Clive. And this is going to be the case really for all of the cyclists, frankly, maybe 95% they're going to be using that section of trail. Good cycling means if there's a pedestrian on the trail, if there's a stroller, if there's an elderly person, you slow down. So just because you may have the right to go faster doesn't mean that you do. That part doesn't change, but I don't want to see something in here that could really penalize the normal and what can be safe and appropriate exercise of your bicycle. And that speed on a hill, as I've shared, that's not just a luxury on a bike, but that's the momentum that gets you up the next hill. So the idea of putting speed limits on trails as a blanket measure rather than a targeted measure, that really is now kind of changing the nature of cycling. And that's one of the things, one of my goals as I've been interfacing with cities on their bike ordinances, is that in trying to regulate these new devices that are on the market, let's not put in provisions that are going to change the very nature of cycling for our cyclists in the community. So those are the big things that still stick out for me. I'm happy to engage in any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Alex? If not, Chief, do you want to respond, particularly on the e-moto question?
Yeah, I guess I don't see it as confusing an issue, maybe as some might. I'm looking at it from a perspective of what type of device is it? Is it a low-speed electric bike? Is it a motorized bicycle? Is it a motorcycle? And I would say the e-moto term is kind of a catch-all. It's not just going to be things that look like motorcycles. Again, the gentleman on 86th Street that was hit by a car was on a 6,000 watt scooter. It looks like a scooter on steroids. But because of the size of the motor and the speed that thing can go, we felt that he needed a motorcycle license and did not have one. So when you look at that 750 watt motor, less than 750 watts is a low speed electric bicycle. Greater than 750 watts with a speed up to 39 miles an hour defines a motorized bicycle or a moped. Greater than 40 miles an hour defines that e-moto. The motorcycle, if the council's comfortable with it, I can take the electric motorcycle term out. It's kind of superfluous at this point. The e-moto is kind of the general term that's going to encompass all of those things. 750 watts or greater with speeds capable of going above 40 miles an hour. So we're looking at the type of device. That's what classifies it. And that's how to me, it seems fairly simple, a simple way to do it. And it allows us to incorporate that 321 code for enforcement. And I guess the last thing I would say is we're probably not going to do a lot of speed enforcement on the trail, but we have used, if you don't know the equation, it's distance divided by time equals speed. We have had to use that. I've had to do math and it hurts my head to do it, but I've had to do that to figure out how fast a person on an electric bike was going so that we could determine who was at fault in a crash. We're fortunate we had video evidence. We could do that, but and she was doing better than 20 miles an hour based on our calculations. So I think that's another important factor that we need to look at. Again, it's just the safety issue. It's the consistency, and that's what I was tasked with almost a year ago when we started looking at this. And I really tried to keep that incorporated because I know that was the council's desire at the time. So.
And Chief, maybe just, you clarified this point earlier, but with the three different buckets you're talking about, you also mentioned there are unique licensing and age restrictions that go with
Right.
that middle category, which would seem to speak to another reason why it's an important one to have called out uniquely.
I think it is. I mean, it's not the Yamaha Hoppers and the Honda Expresses like we had when we were kids. Some of you might not be old enough to remember those, but I remember them. They were fun, and
I remember him, Chief.
I bet you I rode around on one illegally, and I knew when I was doing it. And I am quite certain that a lot of these kids know that they should not be riding these things on streets and sidewalks. I think there's going to be a lot of parents that are probably going to be upset by this if it comes to pass, because they have spent a lot of money on these devices for their kids and they're not going to be able to use them like they have in the past. So,
Well, in all honesty, if we don't pass something, we're going to have a lot more residents even more angry
absolutely. I get calls, not every day, but just about.
every week.
So,
Okay. Further comments or discussions? Are we,
I'll move that ordinance number 1178, having been considered by the council, be voted on for passage prior to its final adoption.
Second.
motion is second for the first consideration? Further discussion?
I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On this question about the reference to Emoto. I'm very interested. I haven't seen that West Des Moines piece before, but I like simple. And I've been having a bit of a hard time wrapping my head around just what is an Emoto. And I will say where it says under this line 3, Emoto or electric motorcycle, that does seem muddying to me. Are we saying that when you use the term Emoto, that always means electric motorcycle?
I think you can use the two terms interchangeably. Like I said, if the council would like, I can take the electric motorcycle reference out. It's not necessary, but a lot of people look at e-motos and think of that electric motorcycle. So I guess that's probably why I put it in there. I'm certainly more than willing to take it out if that's the direction that we want to go. Because again, it's not when you think about an e-moto, it's not something that looks like a motorcycle necessarily. It could look like a regular scooter on steroids. It's just some ginormous electric device with a really powerful motor in it. So, the definition of scooter is, a 2 or 3 wheel device. It's human or electric powered, less than 750 watts, weighs under 100 pounds, it has handlebars, it may or may not have a seat. That's a pretty general description. But you could have something with a 6,000 watt motor that's not a scooter anymore. Now it falls under that e-moto, or what we would consider really a motorcycle for the licensing part of it. So that's probably, I think that's why we have the term motorcycle in there, because I think it helps differentiate that license status that people are going to have to start looking at.
Yes, go ahead.
Sure.
So I jotted down a couple things to chime back in on. I think, Pete, in hearing your question, I think maybe the intention of what I was trying to change here wasn't clear, because I think that distinction between motorized bicycle and motorcycle is important because they're treated differently under state law. So I'm not saying that we should erase that distinction in this ordinance at all. But it's kind of a situation where, how does this work in math? Where all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. So it's a situation where electric motorcycles, those might fall in that e-moto bucket, but so do electric motorized bicycles. So now we're creating confusion when we're implying by the way this ordinance is currently written that electric motorized bicycles are not e-motos, when in fact they are e-motos. So I think that's going to create more confusion. It's also important to note that the term e-moto is not in state code. The term motorcycle is. So if we had to choose one or the other, I would keep it as electric motorcycle and I would take out the term e-moto. It could be that e-moto is just a term you use in education and communication efforts to make it easy for parents to understand. But to put it in this ordinance and make it look like a motorized bicycle cannot be an e-moto, that just really muddies the waters. And I think it's very important that we have really clear communication. It's very easy to explain to parents the difference between an e-moto and an e-bike. It's much harder when now there's this motorized bicycle term that we have to treat differently. So let me
I
see. if-
disagree. I mean, I think they're not mutually exclusive. You can still educate parents with literature just like you have the ordinance written just like it is, that they're not mutually exclusive. So I'm not quite understanding where you're going with this. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I don't think you can have both. I don't understand why we can't.
But I think when your ordinance says an e-moto is this and your communication to parents says something else, to me, that's confusing at least. And there's really, in my view, no value in even using the term e-moto in the ordinance. You can just say electric motorcycle when you mean electric motorcycle, and you can accomplish everything you need from a regulatory perspective in the ordinance.
But e-moto is the more common term in use these days. If you go to a bike shop or you go to Amazon, that's the term you see. So to me, that's what we should be using.
And that's where I offered, if you really want to see the term e-moto in the ordinance, then you could have, here's our electric motorcycle definition, here's our motorized bicycle definition, and then here's another definition that says an e-moto may refer to a motorized bicycle or may refer to electric motorcycle. And then as you drill in throughout the ordinance and there are references to motorized bicycles and to electric motorcycles, you can use those terms specifically where you need to.
How do you feel about that, Chief?
She kind of lost me. The way it's written, I don't see any confusion. It's not been adopted yet, so we haven't started the education part with parents. We intend to do that 100%. And, we hope to be one of the first in the metro, and people will start following, other cities will follow us and adopt the language that we have. And I'm sorry, I don't see really the argument that you're making either. I'm not trying to be argumentative with you either. I've appreciated your reviewing the ordinance and looking at it and catching stuff that I missed. But I think the way that we've got it laid out is really very clear, and we intend to do something similar to what West Des Moines already got. There's a ton of communities that are out there that are putting out literature. We're going to do the same thing, but we have to get the ordinance passed first, and it's going to look very similar to that. I don't know that we could make it a whole lot more simple than that.
So I
but-
do have another question
go ahead.
related to that. I think I'm hearing that an e-moto can either be the electric motorcycle that's referenced under number 3 or an electric bicycle as referenced under number 6.
No,
No?
there's a definition for low-speed electric bike. Those are the class 1, 2s, and 3s,
Okay.
which we talked a little bit about. We can give you the more narrowed down definition of each one if you need those. Then we have the motorized bicycle, moped. That definition and the class 1, 2, 3s and the moped definitions are straight out of the state code. E-moto, there is no state code definitions. We can make that say whatever we want. It's e-moto and electric motorcycle combined because typically people think of electric motorcycles as those e-motos. But there are 50 other types of devices that are going to fall under that don't look like motorcycles, but they're still going to fall under that same description of the greater than 750 watts with that higher speed. So that's why I chose that language. That will be reflected in literature that we put out. The differentiation is very clear to me. Of course, I've been looking at it for 9 months, but and when it's laid out on paper, maybe. I mean, I think we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it a different way. But we have to make those differentiations. We have to show the differences because it's important for licensing and it's important for the education. I can't just clump them all under one definition and then pick and choose from there because I think that muddies it up even more.
Well, let me,
I'll call the question.
let me just suggest, Alex, perhaps you could put in writing what you've proposed so the chief can look at. We're looking at the first reading tonight. We have to do second and third reading. So again, after you have a chance to look at it, chief, we can discuss it at our next meeting.
Certainly.
But right now we've got to vote on the first consideration. And so are there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and would the clerk please post that vote? And that vote passes by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Chief. Amanda.
Good evening. Can we have the lectern on the display? So tonight we have before us the site plan for Ivory Lotus Therapy out on Sheridan Avenue in the Berkshire Commons Office Park. We do have the applicants here with us tonight as well. So what we've got here is one of our about just a little under a half-acre lot that's out in that office park area. And it's currently not doesn't have any building on it. So it's jumping around a little bit here on me. So they are proposing the building to the covenant standards that are out there. It's just right below that 4,500 square foot maximum, single story. It does have all of the architectural standard minimums. This development does have its own higher standard for the percentages of brick and stone material. So it is meeting those higher standards. As well as providing all of the pedestrian connectivity up to Sheridan Avenue and then around the building. The shared parking access that we are seeing here from Sheridan and then also down off of Holcomb to the south is all as it was established with the original preliminary plat and development concept. So that's all consistent. And then we do have a stormwater management feature up here in the front. The detention requirements are all met in a regional facility that predates our modern stormwater management requirements. So all we're looking at on this site is water quality volume and recharge volume. We are still working through some of the technical calculations on that, though we don't expect it to have any impact on the site plan. We did get a little delay getting comments back after the Harbach Center flood and our surprise move. So we were a few days late getting that back. So we're working with them on getting those addressed. We would recommend just staff approval of those final technical portions in that stormwater management report, assuming that it doesn't have a noticeable impact on the site as we're expecting. They are intending to use geothermal as well for this building. So that is another area. The well locations are still being identified. We do think we'll be able to just handle that administratively. But if for some reason that did have a bigger impact on the site, we could be back in front of you for that, though we're not anticipating that it will. And then they are meeting their minimum planting requirements here, as well as having some foundation plantings around and a small portion here near the front entry that has been reserved for seasonal planting, which may also come into some of the therapy sessions that are there for folks. We are meeting the intent of the lighting standards on these really small lots. It's hard to fully meet those site uniformity characteristics. And obviously here we don't have a lot of option to move any parking lot islands or anything around with the specific layouts all kind of locked in place already. But that is why we drafted those as targeted standards. And this is definitely meeting the intent of what the ordinance is, or the development standard, sorry. And then here's our rendering of the building. You can see they're using stone with some wood accents and then have a metal accent near the front entry as well. There is also a bit of grade change here. The property just across the drive has it as well at Weisenberger's real estate investments. So there is a retaining wall in the front here. They're going to use a poured wall, but it will have a decorative concrete form liner that largely replicates the stonework on the building. And with the colors proposed, it'll match very closely to what they'll have on the building there. And that'll let it get down to have a footing so they don't have to deal with any of that frost heave that we experience on some other locations. And then some more pictures of the building. And there's that decorative form liner. With that, are there any questions?
So no comments back from the neighbors then?
Nope, we did not receive any comments in writing from the neighbors. We of course put the sign out, sent notice, but did not receive anything back.
Staff's comfortable with the water retention plan?
Yes, yep. Like I said, we're just working through some of those final calculation details, but we're not anticipating any significant changes.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we need a motion on the
Move
site.
approval.
Second.
Motion second, approve the site plan. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Luck with your project.
Next up, we have the termination agreement. Matt.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. You can flip over to this side. So this has been a discussion for a better part of a year leading up to this point, as the council's aware. In terms of our history with Station 22 and how it's evolved and our relationship with the city of West Des Moines and also with the city of Urbandale in terms of our fire and EMS response. On the screen here is some of the information we used in some of our education with the adjacent neighborhood, the Country Club neighborhood, when we met with those folks, just to kind of give them an outline of what we were looking at doing here. As you can see, over the years, we've really restructured from an ownership arrangement with Station 22 that sits over just south of Panera, south of University Avenue, to a contract for services arrangement back in 2023 when the city of West Des Moines bought the city of Clive out of our ownership stake in that facility to give them flexibility for future movement that they may have in that station if they so choose. They had some heavier discussions at that time in 2018 when we started to do that buyout process. That since has waned a little bit, but I think it's still an option on the table for them. And we kind of knew at this point with our development proceeding out west in Dallas County that we were also as a city reevaluating our own fire and EMS response structure, and hence the work that we did with the city of Urbandale to start to re-envision another arrangement, which was Station 43 in terms of our cooperative agreement with City of Urbandale for response into Dallas County and portions of Polk County where the station was closest. At the same time, we also executed a closest unit response arrangement with the City of Urbandale for all of their stations and our station. So it really had an impact in terms of the first due engine company that we received from Station 22. Also, as listed on the screen here, we've had a lot of changes in technology in terms of our preemption system and our traffic signals that really stretch the reach of our station itself, and as well as our closest unit response and Station 43 arrangements with the City of Urbandale that over time has really reduced the call volume that we've seen from Station 22. And that's shown here on the next screen where since we put a lot of these new technologies and agreements with the City of Urbandale in place, we've gone for a little over 800 calls to, now in 2026, probably projected to be under 200 calls from that station. So we were getting to a point where the relationship was really evolving. Clive's fire and EMS needs were really evolving with these other arrangements. And this was all kind of by design. We knew that this was going to happen over time, and there was going to come a point where it didn't necessarily make sense for both communities to continue this arrangement. And I believe we've come to that point. As the council's aware, the cost sharing that we've had with that station has also declined substantially, as you see on the screen. Again, this was all by design and isn't a surprise that the city of West Des Moines we're having this conversation tonight. In fact, they're aware of it. So we're now at that point where staff is advising to terminate the first due engine company responsibility into our community. That does not eliminate the mutual aid response and that we still have amongst all Westcom cities, including the city of West Des Moines. So that will be maintained. And as the council is aware, we're also in the midst of all the Westcom agencies talking about a further response, closest unit response arrangement across all of the cities in Westcom, which Station 22 would still be a part of that arrangement. So this is how our station configuration sits today between our solely owned station, Station 32 in Clive, 41, 42, and 43 in Urbandale, and then 22, which would go away as a first due engine. And that's one thing that I wanted to mention too, is that arrangement has always been just an engine response. There has never been an ambulance component that the city of West Des Moines has provided at that station. An ambulance has always come from another station as needed, depending on the nature of the response. There was a point in time where Clive actually staffed an ambulance at that station. We found that it was very much underutilized from our initial projections and actually was pulled out a number of years ago, over a decade ago now. This would be the drive time. The chief likes to refer to it as kind of the 6-minute actual that he's actually tested with our preemption system. As you can see, we have the vast majority of our community, literally all of the community covered, and then a few seconds outside of that 6 minutes for a portion of our community, as the council's aware, as we've done this analysis and reviewed it with the country club neighborhood a number of weeks ago. Part of the question on this, though, is yes, we've had these changes happening, but there's also some other layers to the why now in this conversation, and frankly, it's financial as well, as the council is wrestling with a lot of headwinds that we're facing from either the state legislature, also becoming a community that is in a built-out condition. There is more layers to this than just the fire and EMS response, and of course, as a community, we have to prioritize those expenditures and resources and find the best places for them, and this relationship just isn't meeting that test as much as it did in the past. And so with a lot of the things that you see on the screen and the cost savings potential that we would have, this is why we, as your city manager, I recommended it in the budget that you adopted earlier this year for this next fiscal year to exit this agreement and have that cost savings as we wrestle with the deficit position in our general fund and continue to work on that over the coming years. And this is just one step in that process to help resolve that. So that was another layer to all of this that, we're facing as a community and we have to respond to. Finally, just the timeline of how we got to here. As council's aware, in terms of adopting the budget, as I just mentioned, on April 9th. Later that month, we presented this information and actually a lot more. And I know Mayor Edwards also participated and Councilmember Judkins on that call. With board members of the Country Club Owners Association and some of their sub-associations as well. Presented this information to them. It made a whole lot of sense to them why we were at this point and the methodology that we took to get here and how we were very intentional about it, and they appreciated that. And then no concerns were shared with us. In fact, we had a great conversation of how this is evolving and where other fire and EMS response is coming from. We shared that video and other information that they were then able to share with their membership through their own newsletters. So we've been very transparent about this process. So under our current agreement with the City of West Des Moines, there's a 6-month notice period that needs to be provided before the agreement can be terminated. And so my recommendation to you tonight is the termination letter that's included in the packet. The council will need to make a positive vote to affirm that termination letter, and we will send that then to the City of West Des Moines, and that will start the 6-month clock. And then the chief and myself will work with the City of West Des Moines for a transition period with our ultimate goal of having it fully transitioned out by January 1, 2027. So that provides time for us to adjust the computer-aided dispatch for how the first due engine company would be responded to, and provide that 6-month period as required by the contract. At the same time, what I also want to mention is, although we have an unknown implementation timeline, the city will continue to work with our West Des Moines or Westcom partners on this closest unit response arrangement across all of the communities, which then would provide resources back to us from Station 22 and a first due on a priority 1 or priority 2 call, so like cardiac arrest type situation, and that would be an engine and an ambulance, not just an engine company. So there's a potential there, but there's not a guarantee on when that timeline would be. And then lastly, we have another layer as we continue to evolve on our fire and EMS collaborations. Later this summer, we anticipate seeing the results of a consultant effort between Urbandale, Windsor Heights, Waukee, and Clive on further fire and EMS collaboration. So I say all that just to summarize that this has been an evolution over a number of years, been very intentional. We knew this day would come. We still continue to have a whole lot of collaborations and service sharing with our partners to the south, the City of West Des Moines through Westcom and many others, traffic along University and whatnot, and that will not change. Our collaboration is still our main posture. It just sometimes these relationships evolve to the point where it doesn't make sense for either, and I think we're at that point with this particular arrangement. So with that, Your Honor, I would recommend approval of this resolution for the termination letter and would happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
One quick question is, has there been any progress on the CCRI program? I know that seemed like it kind of stalled there for a bit.
It has stalled a little bit. Some of the parties that were involved, particularly the leadership in the city of West Des Moines, they had a new fire station open and that they had some layers there that there hasn't been as much progress as we would have liked. It's still on the boards and there's still a desire to see work done. But we haven't made any progress since we talked last in April that we've been made aware of.
I do.
Susan,
I want to reiterate that it was accepted well by the members of the board of the Country Club Owners Association. One thing I wanted to have clarified, even though that station has been handling in the past year 222 calls, we're not expecting any impact on our existing units that would require hiring any personnel, as I understand.
We are not. That is correct.
So that is a direct savings then without having to make it up, which I think is an important consideration.
Yep. This would be, yes, a savings to our budget with no additional expenditures that we see at this time.
I would move the resolution approving the termination of agreement, fire EMS services, West Side Station, with the city of West Des Moines.
Second,
motion second on the resolution. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Next up, we have our new Public Works Director pay raise.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's happy to present my recommendation to approve the pay rate for Ronald Gaines to join us as our next Clive Public Works Director of Public Works. Ron will be joining us from his current position as Public Works Director in Steele County, Minnesota. Prior to that, he worked for over 20 years for the city of Cedar Falls and then the city of Iowa City before that. Ron comes to us with a lot of experience in both operations and engineering and even in community development and also in city administration. So he comes with a very strong variety of background. As the council's aware, Ron wasn't able to join us in person tonight, and many of you got the chance to meet him earlier this week on Tuesday for a little meet and greet. And then also Councilmember Weaver and Mayor Edwards participated in the interview process where they got to meet Ron as well. We're excited to add Ron to the team. We had over 25 applicants for this process with 3 finalists that we interviewed, and I appreciate the involvement we had from the executive team, as I mentioned, Mayor Edwards and Mayor Pro Tem Weaver as well in that process, and also Rudy Kester, who joined us from Waukee Public Works to provide an outside perspective, which we always appreciate. And then the 2 direct reports for this position, Jerry Freestone and Jonathan Saigon, served as the tour guides of the community, also interviewing to a certain degree as well. So we had a well-rounded process and happy to provide a recommendation of somebody this experience and understanding too really where Clive sits in a metro area as somebody like Ron who had experience in a metro area in the Cedar Falls, Waterloo metro area, working with regional entities, working with neighboring communities with the Iowa DOT on some major projects, which as the council's aware, you look outside the city hall, we have a few of those happening right now. And that's really a key point to make where we're at with Public Works is Ron brings in that experience and that steadiness when we're in the midst of some pretty major projects in Public Works, whether it be Hickman Road and WRA Sewer that are projects that we don't necessarily control, but very much impact us and take up a lot of our bandwidth and capacity to manage. And then the ones we do control, like Alice's Road reconstruction, Harbach Boulevard reconstruction, and all the road rehabilitation work that is happening in water main replacement. So this is I think the right time and the right fit for where we're at as a department. And I'm happy to recommend Ron to you for approval and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Matt? Otherwise, we just need the.
I'll move
motion.
approval.
Second.
Motion second to approve the pay rate. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Matt. Next up, we're looking at a potential pay raise for our city manager. We appreciate all of you providing us feedback on his performance. And again, I guess The one word I would use would be outstanding. We're very pleased with the excellent work that Matt does. And I don't know if Susan or Chad, if you want to further elaborate.
Yeah, no, I agree
how
with
great
that. I
is.
think, we got ratings from all of us up here along. We also got Mike McCoy to include his. So we got the full spectrum of the council, and it was pretty uniform that the ratings were really excellent. And so obviously the council has full confidence in Matt. As far as critiques, most of it is just not to beware of complacency, to continue to do professional development, and to be just aware of the issues that we have coming down the pike. And Matt's fully aware of those, obviously. So overall, it was a really outstanding review.
Do you concur?
I would say ditto.
Okay, very good. We were afraid you might disagree, but that's good. So all we need here is a simple resolution.
I'll move to resolution.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes 5-0. Thank you, Matt.
I appreciate the support of the council and the good dialogue we had during the review process. And as Councilmember Weaver alluded to, we know we have a lot of challenges before us. And I talked about that a little bit earlier in the Station 22 presentation, but with the team that we have assembled and the team up here, as well as the executive team and the strong staff team that we have serving our residents every day, I'm very confident we can meet those challenges. So I appreciate your confidence.
Very good. Molly.
All right. Good morning. I was about to say good morning. I don't know what time of day it is. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today to share with you our communications report from the last 5 months. And we're excited because we've expanded our communications tools these last few months, and I'm excited to share with you those developments as well. Just one moment. I'm trying to get this set up here. The viewer mode is a little different. All right. With this piece, we'll talk a little bit about our storytelling, but also our data from our communications tools, and to kind of give you a snapshot of what we're working with. From the storytelling point of view, we really kicked off this year with our new utility billing system. We had the chance to work with our administrative services team, so kudos to them for helping us build out those communications materials and getting a really head start, starting off into the spring as well. And that is ongoing. A lot of growing with that change to Community Connect, but I think it's going very well so far. We also shared the story about our special census results. Luckily, those came back this spring. And also, we have a lot of construction updates that took a key role in our storytelling, whether it was Alice's Road, Hickman Interchange, the City Hall renovations, which have finally finished. But we also have Lenan Park and Greenbelt Landing. And here's a picture I took last week from Lenan Park. It's coming together very nicely, and that'll be a big story later this summer when it officially opens for us. And as we discussed earlier, the e-scooter and e-bike safety, as we're awaiting review of the ordinance and possibly solidifying something in the future, we're really focusing on e-scooter, e-bike safety right now. And we've actually joined with other metro communities with the Ride Safe and Smart campaign, and really just trying to unify that message. We've also started the Smart Water Use campaign earlier in the spring. And obviously our water use plan has been implemented. So it's kind of going with every cycle of the season right now. But that is something that we do kind of long-term, not just for the summer months. We also wrapped up our budget storytelling for the fiscal year 26-27 budget. And then also just want to kudos to our police department. They've shared a lot of stories about their crisis intervention team and canine program at the Clive PD. And we've seen a lot of publicity about that. All right, next part is Greenie, our friendly neighborhood goat. As you know, it's our virtual assistant and chatbot and text service. Since we implemented this in 2024 at the end of that year, we've marked about 4,872 people who have used the service. And in the next slide, I'll go a little bit more into detail about the breakdown between web chat and text service as well. So the text alerts we've sent this year from January to May, about 34. So it ranges anywhere from road closures to the stage 3 water warning that we just issued earlier this week, and then special events, but also winter weather ordinances. So it's a very multi-use tool. And if you haven't subscribed to Greenie yet, I encourage you to do that now. It's a
Put
very
the weather updates as well.
So we do have weather updates. It's more about the emergency preparedness piece. We still encourage people to subscribe to their Alert Iowa system for the exact warnings. But when severe weather is in the forecast, we will give a heads up text message as well. That we have used that the last few days. So total text alerts since we launched the system, over 128. We've had over 6,655 engagements since we launched in December of 24. All right, so here's the dashboard, just to give us a snapshot of the last few months. And you'll see that total communications between web chat and the text messaging, you'll see web chat is very popular, but it's also important to note that people are accessing our website through their mobile devices, so you kind of get that crossover quite a bit. Greenie is a very helpful tool because it scours our entire website, picks up those updates, and especially when we have something important like the stage 3 water warning that came up this week, I reached out to CityBot and made sure that Greenie was scanning that information and that it was up to date and correct the day that everything happened. So you'll see throughout the spring from February to May, engagement goes up. You'll see a lot of that seasonal engagement, primarily with our parks and recreation teams as well. We see a lot of Greenie activity on the leisure services websites, so it's a very handy tool to have. You'll also see that our most popular topics include, the utility bill, especially with the switch over to Community Connect, garbage recycling, parks and recreation, permits, and library programs as well. So it's a really good tool to have, especially if people come to our website and don't know where to start. They can just type that in and Greenie supplies that answer.
Do
All
we
right.
have any sense for benchmarking for these types of numbers? Like, these numbers are great, but I don't know, are they average? Are they above average, below average for a community of our size? I don't know.
That's a great question.
So yes, we have the ability to go to CityBot and ask how we are comparing to peers. That is not something that we've done in this 6-month period, but we're happy to do that and report
Maybe
out
an end
next
of
time.
year report kind of thing?
Sure, happy to do
Really
that.
interesting.
Well, I know the service is used by some very large cities, so we'll just need to make sure our benchmarking
Right.
is to peers.
That's right.
Peer
yeah.
cities.
Yeah.
And preferably peer cities in Iowa too.
That'll be even tougher.
Peer cities in the Midwest.
There you go. We'll do that.
Yes. Excellent. And so this is a very, multi-use tool. It's actually integrated into our recent CityBot refresh tool as well. We just launched that this year. So it complements it. So the refresh tool is actually about, website compliance and ADA accessibility. It marks various things or accessible content, but also manages the tone and the frequency, making sure that our information is correct and up to date. So that is a tool that we've just launched in partnership with CityBot, and it's giving us a lot of useful data as well.
It also offers saving enormous amounts of staff time.
Mhm.
People said the most important resource to get stories from the city is the website. So if the website doesn't have accurate information, we run a serious risk of breaking some trust and creating some bad perception. A tool like this, which is another version of us using good emerging AI technology, takes a long and painful, tedious task for us to do and makes us extremely efficient and more accurate than we would otherwise be. So it's a good deployment of these emerging technologies.
Absolutely. And I'll share an example of that when we go through our website data on how Greenie helped us amplify that website presence as well. So Greenie is just a tool that we're constantly honing and working on. With alert signups, we typically see a surge during the winter months, especially with winter weather advisories and those parking ordinances. So the signups, they do kind of ebb and flow, but that is something we hope to harness more in the future. So as I mentioned, with Greenie working side by side with our website, the nice thing about Greenie is it provides a lot of both quantitative and qualitative data. I can see how people are asking certain questions when they come to our website and what information they're looking for. And that helps us make sure to say, okay, they're asking about the utility bill. Is this in our content? Do we need to add information? Do we need to update information as well? So that's the part that I don't normally see in Google Analytics. But as you can see in Google Analytics, it really just gives us website traffic and where that traffic is coming from. You'll see mobile usage is the primary driver to traffic, just over half to our main website. You'll see it's a little different for Parks and Rec and Library as well. But the top pages visited, online bill pay, the Clive Careers page, and the temporary street closure. So if you have a chance later, go to topic number 3. That was actually the temporary closure of 100th Street and the free speech area during the presidential visit back in January. So this was information that was coming in. We actually used Greenie. People were asking Greenie questions about the closure, as well as the free speech area and how to access it and what were the rules in that designated area. And so what we did is we used that information, made those updates to our website, updated Greenie within that day, and we were able to meet all of that web traffic to where it was, because that was a significant amount of traffic to our website. And as a result, I think sharing that information, and I think Chief can agree that everything went safely and smoothly during that big event. So just something to keep in mind. With Greenie, we are able to make updates in real time. All right, so for the Parks and Recreation site, you'll see mobile usage really stands out with this one. It usually stands at about 70%. That's why 63% mobile usage these last few months. It was rather surprising. But as you can see, Parks and Recreation is very seasonal with the aquatic center and swimming lessons. But you can kind of see that breakdown of the pages as well. With this Google Analytics data, a lot of this data that we bring in, I'll talk a little bit more about the website redesign and the considerations that we have with those content as well. But the mobile usage is a big piece. And on the library website, it's pretty consistent. Surprisingly, we had more desktop users for the library, but overall, it's just mostly using it to access information about our library calendar and our programs. It's fairly steady. All right, so we're going to take a break from the website and just talk about media coverage from these last few months. We've had a lot of coverage of the Greenbelt Landing milestones because even though we hit the winter time, there was still work being done. And so we were able to highlight that work being done to really build up that momentum going into the summertime and the grand opening of Greenbelt Landing. And we also have a lot of stories and coverage from our police department for their crisis intervention team and K-9 programs. We also received coverage for the special census results, the FEMA grant for flood resilience, and also a lot of coverage around e-bike ordinance considerations. So looking to the next few months, so upcoming stories and projects, a big project for us in the next few months, it's the website redesign project, and I'll explain a little bit further here. We have a lot of e-scooter and e-bike safety, and that will be ongoing, and it'll probably be ongoing for the next few months or years even, because this is a big issue impacting everyone. Big events coming up. We have the Back to School Festival and Lannan Park ribbon cutting in August. That's a really exciting piece coming up, as well as Greenbelt Landing and the 50th Clive Festival. Our resident satisfaction survey results will hopefully be ready in the fall. And of course, ongoing Greenie
They will
adoption.
be ready in the fall.
It will be. Okay, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I feel like knock on wood here.
All right.
Right.
But yes, everything is going, the survey is going on right now, and it's going very smoothly from what I gather from that information. We also have the fire and EMS study results, ongoing Greenie adoption, and then also ongoing e-newsletter adoption, which I'll talk about shortly. So our e-newsletter was a big project launched this spring. We just got it rolling, and we've got a lot of really interesting data to share with that e-newsletter. So we launched the City of Clive e-newsletter because it was the official e-newsletter. Our leisure services teams previously used Constant Contact, but we decided to shift everyone to a new platform, Axios HQ, earlier in May. And this newsletter, it's been a really great tool to have, mainly for using our existing print newsletter and translating that into an electronic format. And the platform uses smart brevity, and it uses existing content, and it really helps enhance it for a digital space, especially if you're checking email from your phone. It really helps people navigate that information a lot better. And with this, we use some AI tools to refine existing content, make it clear, concise, and accessible. The Axios team has been very helpful with their data backed suggestions on how to kind of refine our existing newsletter and make it more accessible in a digital format. Our leisure services teams are switching over. We've actually sent out the library newsletter, and we're working on the Parks and Rec side as well. What's nice about this newsletter, it encourages a lot of engagement that we were not able to track before. So prior to this, we would provide an electronic PDF version to our utility customers, but now this new newsletter, it can be accessible through somebody's email directly, but also on the website as well. But readers can also leave anonymous feedback and click and access links, and we get all of that data, and it shows us what our readers are paying attention to and what they're really gravitating towards. So the analytics dashboard, I'll give you a snapshot of this in the next slide, but it provides us with more data on how to make our newsletter even better. One of my favorite parts of this newsletter is how it drives more traffic to our website. And that's where that bigger website conversation comes into play. For example, we always post our website resources on our social media content, but it doesn't drive traffic quite the same way it does with this newsletter. And I'll show you a little bit of how much of an impact one newsletter can have on our website. All right, so from the last newsletter sent on June 1st, we have over 2,653 recipients and over 3,000 opens. So these are repeat opens. So of course, people are going back and saying, oh, when was this event? Or, hey, I need to get that information. Let me go back to my email. So that's showing that people are finding value in that. 68% open rate was a real eye-opener for us. Industry standard is around 20%. So our open rate is pretty solid. We've had about three editions go through this, the introductory edition, the May and the June, and they're all sitting at about 68 and sometimes 70% open rates. So for the link clicks, once again, my favorite feature, it's driving a lot of traffic to our website now. It shows you which exact links that they're clicking on. So especially if we have the Community Connect utility billing service, I was able to see how many people were actually going there. Because as our administrative services team knows, this is a big push for us right now with Community Connect. And we just want to make sure our communications efforts are having an impact. Any questions on the e-newsletter data?
Yeah, a couple
Yes.
questions. How does the 2,600 recipients compare to the PDF emails that we sent out? Do we know?
Well, that's a great question. We actually don't know with the PDF emails. We don't know. See, the prior format with Express Bill Pay, they did not adjust a subject line. They would just send the PDF. There wasn't a lot of lead into the email. So a lot of our customers, unfortunately, did not recognize that email right away. And with PDFs, we don't get those analytics of who's actually looking through and clicking those.
Yeah.
But that's a great question.
Okay.
We do know, though, that the audience has grown since we made the cut
Yes.
over. And
About 200.
Yep. So in our first three editions, as we open this up now to more people who are folks who maybe don't live in Clive or don't get a utility bill, or maybe they used to get a utility bill and kind of ignored it, but now we're engaging with it more. We're growing that audience. So that's another example of an early return on this investment that we're making in the Axios tool.
And is our future goal to be able to provide the recipients that are receiving this from the ability to opt out of receiving the paper one in order to save some money on producing those?
Yep, that would be a choice to continue making that. Probably a standalone campaign, but I want to give a shout out to our administrative services team. This time last year, heading into the Clive Festival, they made a big push to get more people on paperless and into at that time, the express bill pay system. Liz, I don't know what our split right now looks like on 43% is all paperless and all electronic, right? So growing that now is something that creates some savings opportunities. And it would need to be something we would prioritize as a storytelling campaign and work closely with administrative services if we wanted to do that. I personally feel more confident doing that now because we do have such a powerful electronic version of the newsletter. Prior to this, when we were just sending a PDF and couldn't get good eyes on how people were using it, but no, people still wanted to get it, it made me personally a little less confident about making a pivot.
It was a lot clunkier too. This is a lot more, up to date and modern and,
Yeah, but it's a great question because now that's one less barrier to us moving more and more folks into what is more cost effective and I think more powerful storytelling space. So cost effective to create the stories, and just as impactful when we can put it there in somebody's phone and they can consume
and like Molly said, I can click a link if I have the email, whereas if I get the paper version, I'm not able to do that and go to the website automatically. So, okay.
And another piece too, this was an instrumental tool in sending out the stage 3 water warning this week. So we do send it to the same amount of recipients. I mean, yes, we'd ideally like that list to include more Clive residents, but we were able to get that email out and about the same interaction and open rate and link clicks as well. So that was a really helpful tool to have in addition to the text alerts, the website, and as many channels as we could get that information out. All right. But I will say the format of this newsletter is interesting, and I've worked with the Axios team, and they've given us a lot of valuable insight on what makes these digital newsletters in this format a little different, but they give us a lot of data-driven kind of explanations as to, why we use this format, why we use bullet points, bold certain lettering and headlines, just to make it easy for users to navigate. All right. Okay. So speaking of the website, we've talked a lot about driving traffic to our website. And as Pete mentioned earlier, prior surveys indicated that our residents see a lot of value in our website. And so that brings us to the website redesign project, which is going into 2027 as well. So just as a refresher, I've been working with the website committee. We have representatives from each department, people who regularly update their information for each department as well. And we are in the process of doing a website audit to make sure our information is correct and up to date, but also consolidating any information that needs to be refreshed as well. So our website redesign goals, number one is to meet web accessibility requirements. And that ADA accessibility deadline has been extended to 2028. But with this redesign, it'll help us reach that. We also want to remove a duplicate and or outdated pages and files. And that outdated pages and files, it creates accessibility problems. So for example, PDFs are not always accessible, and it's tough to make them accessible. And so if we can pull some of those old files, take those out, document them if we need to, archive them if we need to, but also moving it to web content and more accessible web forms, that'll make the website operate a lot easier and function better. We also want to restructure the website to improve navigation, improve the mobile interface, because that Google Analytics data shows us that people are accessing the Clive websites on their mobile device. And then finally, to modernize the design and visuals of the site, to hopefully make it as timeless as possible. But as you know, we joke in website design, as soon as you update your website, it'll be outdated in a few years. So, but we're trying to avoid that as much as possible with a classic design, and something that can be utilized years from now. All right. And with that, we, working with the other representatives from the other departments, we've actually come together to create a design for the website. And I'll give you a preview of what direction we're heading with this. As you can tell, so this is from the left and to the right, so it's going to be from the top to the bottom scrolling. It's hard to fit into one PowerPoint. But you can see it's very simple, clean, easy to navigate. We really want that high contrast text to make it easy to read and understand. As you can see here on that front page, you'll have a lot of buttons with maybe repeat wording. Those are all just placeholders right now. Those will be our quick access buttons. And that's something that we'll actually take into consideration with website data, but we're also excited to incorporate the possibility for public feedback, which Councilmember Judkins brought up last time about getting public feedback on our website. And we think one way we can do that is asking residents about how they currently use the website. You know, when they go to the website, are they looking immediately for utility information, parks and rec information, excuse me, et cetera. Pardon me, allergies. So we are anticipating putting up a survey in the fall, asking residents 1 to 2 questions about how they utilize the website. If they go mostly for, you know, the parks and rec information, the permit information, that'll help us decide what makes it to that front page for those quick access buttons as well. But overall, our goal was to just make this kind of a clean and modern look that will translate well to the mobile design, which we have on the next page. So as we know, most of our users are coming to our site for mobile reasons. We don't want them to scroll on forever. So I think this design concept helps us make it a little bit easier for everybody to scroll through those quick access buttons to news and announcements, events and meetings, and more. So we're really excited about the mobile format and making something really easy to navigate. And part of this design project, we're also redesigning the Parks and Recreation website and also the library website as well. On the Parks and Rec website, you'll see that the template is very much the same. We've switched some colors around. We wanted to be able to differentiate, but also unify the design theme here. And we also have the library website. We chose a different route with this one because the website team wanted to really distinguish themselves from the other website templates because we have a lot of green, which is wonderful. Green's my favorite color, but we also need to give the library some space to have their creative space as well. So we leaned into color palettes, part of the branding, but we also got a little creative with it as well. If you look at other city websites, they have really bright, vibrant, creative library pages. And I think this is a way that we can do that, but also stick within our design theme that we want with the other websites as well. And also while meeting those high contrast requirements and making it accessible and easy to use. All right. And that wraps up our website redesign and overall report. What questions do you have for me?
I think you guys are doing a great job, especially with the modernization, the website, and really moving in AI and utilizing these as the tools that they are to create efficiencies and help cost performance. Want to make sure that as we continue to examine stories moving forward in the second half, that we continue to. Some of these stories have legs, and e-bikes is one of these. This isn't going to go away. It's a continued story, but also I want to make sure that we continue to talk about the construction projects and also the K-9 program. And so folks know where we stand with that, in addition with the CIT program as well. So I think these are continued programs that we needed to continue to shed light on so our citizens are aware of them.
Excellent.
Great point, Councilman. Actually, earlier this week, we had our regular quarterly meeting with Matt, where we go through the entire communications calendar for the next quarter of the year. And every one of those items you identified is on that calendar.
Good. Thank you.
Great work on the comms team. Any other thoughts or comments?
I love the mobile
Excellent.
focus. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think I said this last year, but just want to give kudos to Molly and Pete and all the comms. I mean, where we've come from in the last decade is just, it's night and day, right? I mean, how much better we are at communication. So really, really appreciate all your efforts.
Well, we appreciate the support to make, these new tools and efforts happen. So thank you.
Last thing I'd mention, Molly's going to be off doing something much more important here soon. And that means that there are a lot of us who are going to be putting the considerable amount of weight that Molly carries sort of on our shoulders. But we've got a plan, and the team is well prepared going into this period of time because of the work Molly's done to set us up for success and the intentionality we've brought to sharing the responsibilities. So over the summer, you'll be seeing me doing some things that are a little bit different than I've done, and you'll see a few of our other colleagues in the library department and other departments, Park and Rec too, helping out with a lot of these really cool stories, especially around the parks, because these summertime months, we are going to do a lot of celebrating around our natural spaces, our trails, and our parks.
Absolutely. And I'd just like to thank the other departments for stepping up and helping us out, train people up while I'm out on leave. So thank you. All right. I
Great
appreciate it.
job. Thank you,
All right,
Molly.
thanks. All right. Next
All right, well, do we have any correspondence? All right, we'll move into reports.
Thank you, Your Honor. So wonderful trip to Washington, DC. Glad that I was able to join Councilmember Weaver, Councilmember Gasparotto, Councilmember Judkins, Councilmember Hucker. I think we've all made some wonderful connections with other folks. And most importantly, we're able to express great thanks to the congressional delegation for helping us in multiple fronts with hazard mitigation and future resilience, specifically to flood and severe weather. We'll have a chance also now to celebrate here in town this coming Monday. We have an event with Congressman Nunn. I'm not going to sort of let the cat out of the bag on exactly the message, except to say it's a really, really excellent win that we wouldn't have had except for his team's efforts and his efforts. So more to celebrate on Monday. Earlier this week, for your awareness too, because it was a particularly large group that I presented to, though I didn't think it was going to be, I did present at a morning meeting to about 80 people in the Shadow Creek Condo Association that's immediately south of Circasina Park. That was originally going to be 20 group of sort of a men's coffee, 20 guys who get together, but they opened it up to the entire association. So the entire neighborhood was there that morning. And I know that neighborhood has had some critique of the community, but I would say that the tone was so positive, was so forthright. We were able to talk about hard things, but also talk about wins. I used the deck that the mayor prepared for the state of the city earlier this spring, and all of that was incredibly well received. I am always gratified when residents are willing to sit and work and listen and ask smart questions about municipal finance. It's not the craziest, the sexiest topic, but I think the way that we lay it out there and the fact that they all care about it so much is something that really is beneficial and signals to me that, yep, that's the kind of thing that even though you may not always see it get the most engagement on the website, it's really important that we keep doing it for events exactly like that event.
So Pete, before you move off that, there was a lot of pushback for a while from some of those residents about Circasina Park.
Yep.
Was there any new message how have they accepted that as part of their community now there?
I think that many of them have moved from rejection to we're going to give them the time to see. But there were some really important things they mentioned. They care about weed control. And I explained that mowing is the primary way, but then there'll be the spot control we do with herbicides as well. And Richard did a good job getting me prepped for explaining that. There were some specific areas where their ground has still been really compacted, and they'd like to see some attention given to that to go and get the turf looking better. Easy stuff that we can address. And I actually walked the park, and Matt has happened to be walking the park at the same time I was that morning, and we've got shots there where we need to do some work. The pond, ponds are the south side of the pond in particular is an area where there's a lot of sort of the native species and the grasses around the pond that are getting closer to the backyards of some of those residents. And they ask us to give that some special attention and some attention to places where there's kind of some thistle patches coming up. Great feedback, right? Exactly the kind of stuff we need to hear so we can go and address it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I appreciated is the HOA's director asked me, because I met with him individually and one of the other board members before this meeting, and he asked me specifically, why do we choose to plant natives? And what are those bioretention cells? And after I was able to explain that to him, he sort of asked a leading question during the Q&A where he asked me to share some of that same information with the residents. And I was getting a ton of head nods. So, all right, I see this. I preface it by saying it may not be everybody's perfect taste. You may like a more manicured look, but we choose to work with natives because they do create all these other benefits and they're hardy for the climate that we've got. And so when we explained it to people, they said, okay, may not be what I want to do in my yard, but now I have a better understanding why the city does it in their yard.
That's great.
Pete, I've addressed that group last year, as a matter of fact, and gave an update. One of the things they talked about was the sign for 16 Park on the interior of that they all felt that they didn't need the sign, that it brought outsiders in a private area right there. Did they bring that up at all?
They did, and they've had some previous conversations with our community development office about what they could do from a signage standpoint. After talking with our comm dev team, I think where there was at some point, some interpretation that maybe the city was more sort of at a hard no, or there was an impasse, when in fact, I don't think there was. The interior signage they were talking about were things that are already posted. You are entering a private community. All the individual signage they have for the speed limit, 14 miles per hour on those private streets. The new one that we heard more about was coming into the private community from the park in the north. And the primary reason that many were concerned is that when folks are coming in on that sidewalk, they're riding the e-scooters and then they're darting out into those streets as well. So we can't put up something that says you can't come through, but could we do some things in a tasteful way that's consistent with the sign ordinances that kind of reinforces some of that visually for people who are entering the community? So I think there's more good conversation we can have there. The last thing I'll add is that we did just get an update from Central Iowa Water Works. Every Thursday now they're providing an update on where we sit with sort of the source water conditions. And while the nitrates do remain stubbornly high, it does sound like we are seeing a very good response from the community to entering the stage 3 ban. Not something that anybody loves, but it does appear, just like we saw last year, that folks understand the importance of doing it. I will have updated numbers tomorrow or on Monday for how Clive residents are responding and how the total gallons used for irrigation is moving. I can share with you now, though, that even before the ban went into place, we saw a decrease when we had the 50% voluntary reduction that went from a peak of about 1 million gallons used for irrigation. And then as we moved into the timeframe on the 8th, when the ban was just put in, that decreased to under 300,000, or excuse me, under 400,000. So in the 300,000s. That's a good decrease. Now, the week before that, when the voluntary reduction was also in place, we didn't see that kind of movement. We actually saw some slight increases on a few of the days, but we'll need to dive into that a little bit deeper, because I think a lot of that has to do with just the time it takes for people to get their house in order. They don't know how to handle the system. They needed to get in touch with the irrigation company. It takes a few days. There was the holiday short week that it was right before that too. So I look at that last 7-day stretch in the voluntary phase and say, even that was working for Clive residents. They were doing the right thing. And that is the big headline. I know a lot of folks want to ask about what is enforcement going to look like. I think the big headline is Clive folks want to do the right thing. They did it last year, and I think they're going to do it this year too.
Anything else, Pete?
No, Your Honor.
Questions? Sadie?
Thank you, Pete, for the update on DC. I echo your thoughts on the trip. I thought it was a great trip and I learned a lot. And the only other update I have is, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I went on the DART Route 4 bus tour in preparation. Reimagine DART, the new routes will be launching the 14th, coming right up. So you'll see all the signs that have the bags on them. Those are the new stops. So if people ask what's going on there, that's what it is. Route 4, a lot of good information on the Route 4 that connects many of the communities here together. It goes right through Clive. So we learned a lot about different things on that route and how that connects with some of the other routes. So I thought that was all very good information. I think that's the only other update I have. Thank you.
Couple things. MPO exec met today, and consistent with our conversation tonight, a spirited discussion on e-bikes. We have a couple board members at the MPO who want the MPO to take the lead and create a model ordinance and provide a committee that forms to put together something for the whole metro. There were a couple of us, myself included, who pushed back pretty strongly with that train's already left the station. We are coordinating with our neighbors, and that to form a committee at this point, it would just delay the process. And so it was a pretty good 20, 25-minute conversation. But I think at the end of the day, it was decided that the role that the MPO can play is to help collect all of the information that the various communities do, to provide to all of our members, and then also to help with the coordination of lobbying our state house to get the state to move on this, because that's at the end of the day what we really need, right? So I think the MPO will be involved at that level, but not in drafting a model ordinance at this point. So that's MPO Icon Water Trails. We had our board meeting on Tuesday. We are past chairs, so we have co-chairs, a public chair and a private chair. Private Stan Houston from Principal, and public has been Matt McKinney, our friend from West Des Moines. So they are rolling off, and we voted in Catherine Kunert from Mid-American. So she'll be our our private chair, and the co-chair from the public side will be Mayor O'Connor. So we've got some good leadership at Icon. And, Dan made a great point about Dean, and Chris Costa also, who's the chair at the partnership. The number one objection you get from folks about serving on these committees is I don't have time. Well, here's Dean going through some cancer recovery, and he's still finding time, and he's still the chair. So it says a lot about him as a person. And then I had some flyers and I left them in my truck, but we did a tour and Susan was there. Great to see her there. We did a tour of a couple sites. As I've mentioned previously about Icon, we're now actually starting to see the tangible results happen. So Floor Street, the Floor Street area, which is basically, if you think about Gray's Lake, it's going to connect to Gray's Lake. Okay. And it'll be what they're kind of calling the kids version of the Whitewater Rapids area. And so that work has started, and this year and probably into part of next year will be the in-water work to do all of that. And then the following year will be what's called the uplands, or just basically the ground area where you have parking and benches and trails and what have you. So that has started. And so we toured that area, and then we went over to Scott Avenue, which is right across from Principal Park. And if you know where Mullet's is, the restaurant Mullet's, it's right there. So that's the big one. That's the big whitewater raft fishing.
Principal Point's what it's called.
Yeah, Principal Point is, yeah, that's right. So we call it the Scott Avenue area, but that is basically done with the in-water portion of it, and then the uplands still have to be completed, but that should be done by next year. But all the in-water stuff, so if you want to go surfing, you want to go whitewater rafting, you want to do anything like that, there's going to be fishing areas. All of that will be completed here within the next month or so. So it's pretty exciting. And then there's one other location. It's Harriet Street. It's just an access point. So it's a very small project that's just a little bit upriver from the Scott Avenue that has been fully completed. It's mainly just like a boat launch and some parking and a little bit of wetlands. But that's been fully finished and has been handed over to the city of Des Moines. So the city of Des Moines will now maintain that going forward. But it's just another access point for anyone that wants to get into the river or fish or anything like that. So, and then there's some wetlands for stormwater management and things of that nature. So, so pretty exciting on that end. I do have a really nice flyer that I left in my truck, but I'll get it to you all. So, and Susan's seen it. So,
And Councilmember Weaver, you'll have your own local Icon access point open here pretty soon.
at Greenbelt Landing. Yeah.
So just earlier this week, we had a team, we met to start going over the ribbon cutting, dedication, donor event, reception that we're going to have associated with the Clive Festival for Greenbelt Landing. The council will see here very soon a save the date that'll be going out for that Friday afternoon, 4:30, right? 4:45? 4:15. And basically this reception event's going to lead into the Clive Festival for that evening. But earlier in the week, we're talking about having some kind of one-off events for specific elements of the Greenbelt Landing with specific groups, with Bravo Icon being one of those as both the art piece and the water access point. Obviously variety with the playground. Also, we talking with the state and IDOLS about their investments in the wetland components and the water quality components. So more to come on this, but since you brought up the icon piece, you also have one of the larger regional projects here in Clive opening up in July. So
Very exciting. We got a lot going on.
and I believe we've got the signage squared away, so we'll have an icon signage that kind of takes a little bit of our piece, our branding,
Right.
incorporated into the site. The foundations have been poured for all the signage. We're just working on the actual signs themselves. So
I think we had a nice compromise on that. So.
yeah, we got to a good place. So also exciting. We'll be coming very soon to Clive.
Thank you, Matt. Anything else, Ted?
That's it.
Eric?
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Very good. Well, just follow up on what Sadie said. I do have route maps for 3 and 4. If you're at all interested, just let me know. And the other thing is it's a reminder that starting on the 14th to the end of the month, you can ride free. There'll be some adjustment with the route changes, and so they didn't want to hassle anyone. So you can just ride for free and get an experience. So, Susan.
Well, first, I'd like to thank responsiveness to questions raised on the irrigation ban and appreciate the city wanting to get that word out. The Housing Solutions Alliance board met this week, and among several notable things, we recognize that the city of Des Moines has allocated $150,000 to support the HSA, of which 50,000 is going to a diversion fund for homelessness diversion, and then 100,000 unrestricted. So it's really the first government stepping up with a donation. I'm not aware of a coordinated effort to come to each community yet, but I did want you to be aware of that one.
And I believe I saw too, I think the city of Des Moines got a pretty substantial grant, I think, from the Harvard Foundation, or to have a fellow come and work on their some of their housing.
Correct.
And I think that's tied a little bit with the Housing Solutions Alliance, which is pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else, Susan?
Nope, that's it.
Great.
I also enjoyed DC last week. It was nice to spend some quality time with my fellow council members. I think Pete and Sadie probably have enough brief fun facts to last a lifetime, but they got a lot of me, which was good. But it was also really nice to hear from other people who say, I come to Clive to do this very specifically, or I used to live here and I miss living here, or I travel from Newton to Clive for ice cream because it is the best ice cream in the metro. That was a level of dedication I was not prepared for, but people say so many nice things in a really unsolicited manner of, I just say, I'm Clive City Council, and they go, oh, Clive, and they all have something to say. So kudos to our staff, get a lot of compliments on them as well.
Very good.
And that's all.
Lisa, anything legal?
I'd just like to know where the destination ice cream location is so that I can
Right.
make sure to stop.
Yes, Monarca
Monarca, yeah.
over off of 100.
University, yeah.
Yes.
That's my only report this
Okay, well,
evening.
thank you.
Just a question.
It's a good one. Matt?
Just a couple things to add, Your Honor. The next council meeting, Chief Rayberg, in addition to be back for the e-bikes, will also be back to talk a little bit about the crisis intervention team and some funding expansion that we've seen from the state in terms of, Iowa primary care through the state with some additional funding. So we're excited to share that amendment with you. It's a step in the right direction. Is it all the way where we want to be? No, but it's close. We're getting closer. And then a proposal, as we discussed at the last meeting, we are going to share kind of a formal proposal and the numbers in terms of the mental health practitioner side of the equation. And then lastly, too, I know that the council aware of the incident last late Thursday night into Friday morning last week at Campbell Park. We'll be providing an update on kind of where we're at with the investigation on the shooting. Still interviewing, and charges haven't been filed yet. That we're aware of at this point, but working with the Polk County Attorney's Office on that. But all the parties are known. It's just working through some investigation process there. So that's all I have on that.
Any questions?
Any questions, Your Honor?
Any questions for Matt? The mayors did meet last night. We were at the Gold Star Military Museum. We had a nice tour. I want to thank Richard for joining me there. We had a good discussion. One of the things that came up was library collaboration, and just wanted again to let you know that we're trying to work with our neighbors to see what opportunities there may be for collaborative ventures. So we're still on that. We've had several meetings and looking forward to a few more, but just wanted to let you know that we discussed that with all of the metro mayors as well. So anything else or for the good of the order tonight?
Your Honor, I'll just mention quickly too that yes, you did see there's some damage from the storm in certain parts of the metro area following the brief heavy wind. We did not see any of that damage here in Clive, so we were fortunate. No power outages. There was other parts of the metro that did experience that, but we came through pretty unscathed this morning, and definitely a lot of damage to the south of the metro.
Yeah.
Flooding and wind damage. This was a pretty significant event over the last 24 to 48 hours. So maybe another little shot on Saturday night, but then next week is very, very much cooler and dry.
Well, my patio furniture took a beating.
That's
Thank
all
you,
I have,
Matt.
Your Honor.
Anything else for the good of the order this evening? Otherwise, we'll adjourn at 7:51.